Welcome to Deal Talk. My name is Jeffrey Veit. Let's talk about buying cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, motorhomes, whatever we can talk about, and avoid the tricks and pressures dealers use. And boy, they're really up to it nowadays, aren't they? And we'll cover some of the industry news as well. That's kind of important to know which choice to make. But let's start off with the EV corner. Electric vehicles are in the news more and more every day. But you know what? The arguments, as science works on it, are getting easier and easier to come up with against CO2 emissions and how they are affected by fossil fuels or not fossil fuel vehicles. I have an interesting fact that has been verified based on real science. The science says this: an average tree can absorb about 48 pounds of CO2, or process it, 48 pounds of CO2, in a year. Since it's a global issue, I'll get right to the world statistics. There are 3 trillion trees on this planet. Yep, 3 trillion. The planet produces about 37 billion tons of CO2, and the 3 trillion trees will absorb up to 72 billion tons. Now think about that. We're producing 37 billion tons a year of CO2, and the trees, now that's not counting other foliage, we're just talking about trees. The 3 trillion trees will absorb up to 72 billion tons. That's twice what we're already producing. Like I've been saying, what climate change we're experiencing is Mother Nature. There's no question about it. Hard to argue with that, though, isn't it? Think about that. If that's true, and assuming I'm correct, that each tree, the average tree, some absorb a little more, some absorb a little less, but the average is 48 pounds of CO2 in a year. Then 3 trillion trees would be more than double what we needed to keep up with CO2 just to keep up with it. Much less they say it's getting worse. It's not getting worse. Climate change is Mother Nature, period, right? Consumer Report just came out with their buying guide edition for many products in May and June edition, right? One magazine is 2 months, May and June. That's how big a magazine it is and how important it is in their eyes. There are articles written by Ben Preston. We've talked about him before. You know, it's not too bad. The articles some of them are pretty good. It includes an article which gives you 5 things to know when buying. That's pretty important. 5 things you should know when you're buying. If you're going to cut down buying into just 5 things you should know, they'd be pretty big ones, right? He missed big on one of them. I got to say something. He did. Suggestion number 2. Remember, electric vehicles and hybrid cars cost the least to maintain. That's not true. EVs will probably cost more. Why? First of all, gas and EV have many of the same parts. Other than the powertrain, the shocks and the brakes and the tires and the wheels and all that stuff are both have to be serviced on both vehicles. Just primarily the powertrain is the difference. Gas vehicles need tune-ups every 80,000 miles. EVs don't. But 80,000 miles, that's like 5 years of driving, right? I predict they will wear out, electric vehicles now, will wear out many suspension, brakes, and bushings quicker than a gas vehicle because of the weight difference. They often weigh about 1,000 pounds more than the comparable gas vehicle. Well, weight causes friction and stress. And I think it's already starting to look that way, but they haven't been out long enough to really put a precise number on it. But I think there's going to be a big difference in that respect. Secondly, the batteries, when they finally go completely, thousands and thousands of dollars more to fix. The battery warranties are prorated for age, and as lithium gets scarcer by supply, and we all hear about that in the news, right? Those special metals that they're looking for, right? And demand will drive battery prices up quickly, for sure. It's fairly obvious that EV will be a lot more to maintain based on the average ownership period of vehicles. And take in mind that the gas vehicles, a lot of people keep them 7, 8, 9 years. You're not going to be able to do that with an electric vehicle. I mean, are you going to put a $10,000 or $15,000 battery in a vehicle, or are you going to buy a new one? I don't know about you, but I'm out at that point. It's like my phone. I don't change the battery on my phone. Maybe once I might, I suppose. But that's $100. That's not $10,000, right? To qualify the item, one, domestics cost less to fix, but they'll need more often. So that's the other thing in the article it talked about, is that domestics often cost less to fix. Well, that may be true because the parts aren't imported, but you have to fix them a lot more often. That's why you'll see the big advantage to imports is because their repair record's much better than domestics. Domestics cost less to repair, but they have to be repaired more often. I don't know if there's a chart that covers exactly time in that equation too, the time cost benefit ratio element. I don't think it's fair to say that one's going to cost more than the other or less than the other. I think that on a per repair basis, the domestic might be, a water pump on a domestic might be less than a water pump on a imported vehicle, something like that. But when it comes to term, you might go through 2 water pumps on a domestic vehicle during the time you went through one on the imported vehicle, especially when it comes to Japanese imports. Say what you want about them, but they're the best vehicles out there, the happiest customers overall. Look at every list. I don't care who the magazine is. I don't care what magazine you read or what article online. The Japanese, Mazda, Subaru, Honda, Toyota, they're the happiest customers. Well, there's a reason for that. And that's because those vehicles hold up better, have better resale value, all the important stuff that affect you as a consumer. So sorry, Ben Preston, you're a little off base, and there's no room for bias here. No, if you're biased, I'm sorry, there's no room for that. Now, the consumer report book I recommend is the Buying Guide, which looks more like a paperback, not a book. This one that they just came out with for June and July, or is it May and June? May and June, I think. It's a 2-month issue. It's a thicker, but it's a magazine shape and size and all that stuff. If you want the real good one, the one that I really believe in is the Buying Guide, which they come out with yearly. To get that, you have to either subscribe to the magazine or call and buy one or purchase it or go to the library and read it. All the libraries have it. You can go in there and for free you can read it. That yearly booklet is the most accurate piece of material Consumer Report produces. No question about it. It covers more than cars, but normally to write those articles on each product, they have a bunch of writers involved in opinions. You can't have one person that has a prejudiced point of view. That's such a big part of our society nowadays, bias. Everybody's got their cross to bear, And it's crazy that they're sticking up for things just because of money or because they want to be heard in what they think. No, you got to go by the facts. But Consumer Report has that magazine. You can get that book. It's a little paperback book, right? And that's what you want. Or you can also get it digitally. You can get the digital edition available through cr.org. You can go on there and get it there, but they don't do one every year, but you can ask them when you call how often. Usually they do, but there's a couple of years they've missed, I think. Especially I think it was during COVID, to be honest with you, but I'm not really sure. But that's the one you want. You want that buying guide, the paperback size buying guide. And I have it all the way through 2021. I don't have the newest one for some reason. I looked around for it. I probably left it in the library in the house here or something. I don't know where it is, but you can get that. That's the one that I recommend the most. So if you're trying to figure stuff out, that's the one personally I use. If you like this podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on iTunes or Google Play. A lot of you have. Please keep doing that. Whatever source you use, I don't care if it's iTunes or iHeartRadio or whatever. Spotify, podcasting is getting big, and you go there, you can do a review. It would really help me out if you did a review. Don't forget to tell your friends and relatives about the podcast. You'll be a hero. I guarantee you, everybody gets something out of this that saves them some money every episode, or gives them a tip on what not to do or what to do or how to handle a situation. Everybody. And they'll appreciate it and they'll thank you, I guarantee you. Those of you who'd like some written material with you to carry along when you're shopping, then get a copy of The Informed Buyer off from Amazon or off from Barnes & Noble. Yep, you can download it to your phone or to your iPad or, doesn't matter if it's a Samsung or an Apple, doesn't make any difference. You can download it to either one and you can use it, and it's a tremendous amount of help. And it's $3. I mean, think about it. What else can you buy for $3? Just a little while ago, I went to Starbucks and bought a cup of coffee, and it cost me $3.63. And it was gone in an hour. And this will be with you every day, and you can lend it to other family members. It's worth the $3. Spend the $3. You'll be glad you did, I guarantee you. There's stuff in the podcast that's not in the book, absolutely, but the book is the basics. But it's still probably worth $300. I don't know. $3 it's been since 2015. I haven't raised the price. Inflation hasn't affected it, and it's not going to. It's going to be $3, and that's it. But spend the $3. It's a smart move. cover a lot of subjects about the F&I department, right? The AKA business office, the guy that does your paperwork, that works, the one guy in a dealership. Now they all wear polos and stuff like that, but the one guy still wearing a tie is always the F&I manager. He's always got the banker look, right? And he pitches you on other products to complete the sale, right? If you like the old days where the department got its name, what was called the Life and F&I, Finance and Insurance, is what that stands for. That's because most of what they did was arrange your financing, and they would talk to you about life insurance and accident health insurance on your loan. That was, 50 years ago, right? Yeah, about 50 years ago. That's what F&I did. That and the paperwork, right? And they made sure everything was legal, and everything was dotted and all the T's were crossed and everybody's signature was readable and all that stuff. It's developed into something much bigger and more profit-oriented for the dealers now, right? It's huge. Most dealers do not offer life and accident health insurance, first of all, because the obligations and the liabilities are too dramatic. If a person doesn't get life and A&H, and then 3 years later they have a problem, and they say, well, the dealer never told me. And, of course, you go to court, and the dealer always loses, or a lot of times loses, because they want to say, and there's a lot of bias going on in law, and nothing's changed. It's always bias in the consumer's favor. So to stop it from coming up later, dealers don't offer it. That says right in the F&I office, we don't offer life and accident health. And that way it never comes up. You can't say you didn't tell them because they didn't, because we don't sell it. So we're not obligated to do anything about it. And that's what's happened, unfortunately, because of people all trying to bear their own free money. They sue over things that they shouldn't, and that makes things go away. And that's what's happened. So you don't have any insurance and accident health insurance generally in most F&I offices. Some still offer it, but most don't. The ones that record their office do, so they can prove that they've offered it to you or didn't. Because everybody doesn't want it until they need it. Then they want it, right? Now they offer other products, most of them. That's it. It used to be the primary part of the sale that the profit generated by the vehicle was, F&I was those things. But now it's all kinds of other things. A lot of times the F&I office, the guy that does your paperwork, he'll generate more profit for the dealership than the car sale did, or the boat sale, or the truck sale. Yep, a lot of times. There are a lot of things in an auto deal that a person needs to deal with. One of those is that F&I office. You got to learn to handle all the angles in that office. They're primarily go to see them to handle the financing. Most people going to buy a vehicle, they finance it. Not everybody, but most do. They either lease it or purchase it on payments. So they deal in negotiation with a salesperson and a management, and then when they get all done, the deal's worked out as far as what the deal's going to be, then all that paperwork goes into the F&I manager, and you go in and talk to him. He does your paperwork, has you sign everything, and you're on your way. Before he does your paperwork and during your paperwork, he also talks about a myriad of products. Some good, some not so good, and none of them free. They're all expensive, right? More importantly, this person arranges your payment method. That's where the largest percentage of finance department profit comes from, arranging your loan. It's called reserve. Most dealers make the most in the F&I office from reserve. In handling your financing, they try to establish an interest rate that will allow them to obtain that commission from the bank or the lending institution for sending your business there. This is a commission the dealer receives in a pretty good sized chunk of money. I mean, even if they offer you you might get a good rate in the dealership, they're still going to get a kickback from the bank in most cases. And if they're giving you a better rate than you could get when you went out and shopped the banks, well, then there's more power to them. It doesn't matter that you're getting a kickback if you couldn't get any better anyway. But on the other hand, you might say, if they're making money at your expense at that point, which is usually the case, that's certainly not a good thing. You should have to tell you at least. I think there should be a law. There isn't currently, but I believe there should be. If a dealer's getting reserve payments for doing your financing, that money should be exposed so you know exactly what it is. If you buy at your local dealership, your local Honda store, and he's getting a kickback in the bank of $1,200, you should know that. It should be something that's divulged to you, in my opinion. And even if they beat the terms, like I said, they should still have to divulge it to you. But the way around some of this is by handling the financing on your own or at least going out and shopping it and know what the rates are and what you're eligible for. Know what the other banks have. So when you go into the dealership, if he's higher than the banks, you can bring that up and tell them you get your own money, and they'll come down to you. They'll match whatever you found. There's no question about that. And hopefully you can even get them lower than that. But if not, that's just the way it is. You get that money back. Compare the rates and the terms. Always, always. All you need to do that is your credit score, which you can get online in a million places for free, and a telephone. And call the banks, and you'll find out what you qualify for. The public generally doesn't shop rates because of that average profit per deal goes through the F&I department. It tells you they don't, because the average in the U.S. is $1,800. The average consumer that buys a vehicle and goes through the F&I office in a dealership is $1,800. That's the average. Now, there's a lot of people that come in and pay cash and don't go through the F&I office. So if the average is $1,800, what does that mean the high side is? That mean that some people are paying $2,500 in profit? Sure it does. $3,000 profit? Absolutely. That's how they get to an average. But that's because people don't shop it. They don't do anything about it. It's no extra, really any extra work, but it's a big chunk of money. And the only way out of that, you can't ever get out of paying that money without paying off the loan. And in the loan's case, the dealer will have already been paid for the money. So unless you get out of it in the first year, that money is never going to come back to anybody. And that average includes the F&I products and the financing both, but that $1,800. And it can be more with some tricky dealers, right? It's all about money. We've talked about some of the huge auto groups that average $1,900 per unit sold. Big auto groups. They have a system when you come in. The income average per sold indicates the cash deals. And like I said, they're going to be average more than that. So those dealers with their average of $1,900, they probably got some people that are making $4,000 on in the back end. A couple thousand finance and a bunch on rust proofing, extended warranties, and all these other extra things that they can put on a vehicle. Think about that. That's the way it is, though. Special rates, financing deals that have little or no profit or whatsoever, they still get a little something from it, right? Even if they do 0% with a company, the company gives them $100 or something, not much for handling the paperwork, but they got all the other products they're selling to make money. And that's why they stay away from that 0% as much as they can. They want to give you a rebate. They don't want the 0%. They want the factory rebate so that they can do the financing and make some kickback money. If you do 0% with the factory, they can't get any kickback money on that. There isn't any. It's 0%. It would not be uncommon for a deal to produce $2,000 or more from the finance off. That's on top of the profit the dealer made on the vehicle. It would not be uncommon. If that's the average, let's think how much, like I said, they could be making. The other job that they have besides doing the financing is to talk to you about products like an extended warranty, paint protection like paint sealant, fabric guard on your seats, rust proofing, prepaid maintenance. Some of these things are good value if you can get them at a reasonable price. Low jack security or other security systems, glass etch, tire hazard insurance, gap insurance. That's another good one if you need it. Dent protection. Those are things that they'll try to entice you to buy. That's on top of any items that were on the addendum label on the window when you're on the lot. Next to the window sticker, a lot of times, is a sticker that says mud flaps and door urge to stripe, $400 or $500, which they really don't figure in for any money. They're just using that as a way to show a bigger discount. But that's on top of it. Who knows what else they'll be selling? The industry is constantly coming up with ways to make money. I mean, they're not short at thinking about ways on how to make money. That industry is no question about it. Remember, there are almost 100 companies trying to get their foot in the automotive market at any given time. And they got key replacement companies now and all kinds of things. Some of those expensive cars, the key costs $500. Now they got companies that'll build you a key for $75 or whatever, if you buy in, or dent protection to fix your dents. All kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things you can buy. I can't even think of them here sitting at the different stuff that you can get into. These aren't bad products in most cases, and depending on the situation, there's some that should be good for you. But the problem is price. The price of a dealer-installed extras is way more than normal. Anything you're going to add when you buy a vehicle should be part of your due diligence before you get to the dealership. So if you know you're living in the Northeast, you're going to buy rust proofing, or anywhere in the North, I would buy rust proofing in a state that didn't use salt. I would still buy it. because it's going to entice the resale value. I don't know about you. We're looking at 2 used cars. I live in Connecticut. One's rust-proofed and one isn't, and at exact same mileage. I'd pay more. I'd buy the one with, well, I might pay more, but I would pick the one with rust-proofing first. Sure, it can't hurt. And another thing it does, a lot of people don't realize is it's rust-proofing is really what a lot of luxury cars do to make them luxury cars. They spray this really thick undercoating on them so they're quieter. Well, rust-proofing makes your vehicle quieter. There's no question about it. They aren't bad products. Really, they're not. They're not. They're just things that you need to think about, and you need to get at a reasonable price. The technique commonly used to sell these items is generally clumping them into 3 or 4 groups and listing them on a menu. They got this thing that looks like a menu. One group is everything. The next group on the menu is almost everything. And the next group is some of everything. And then the last group is offering, gradually is a, with just say, just one thing. They're gradually offering it in a payment increase figure. So here's the payment with everything. Here's all the products. They go over all the products and say, you can have all that stuff for a lousy $60 a month more, when actually it was maybe $150 a month more, but because they packed your payments, which we talked about all the time, you think the payment's actually $40 or $50 more in a month than it actually would come out to. You think all that stuff's only costing you $50 a month, and you say, okay. Or you might say, no, I don't need all that stuff. And they'll say, okay, well, that's okay. Here's the same list, but we'll take out a few things, and here's what we would come up to. And that's a little less per month. And they gradually bring you down, but that makes it easier because half of what you were going to pay for those items, it was built in with the payment packing that went on when you were making the deal. It just makes the sound softer. They're not going to cheat you out of the money. They just want to make the sound softer. The only people that are approached with total price being mentioned about a product would be a cash buyer. Cash buyer, they can't do that payment thing. So they got to tell you exactly what the selling price of the product is. This kind of selling plays into one of the techniques that we've talked about a lot. And, when it's one price, if they're going to have to go up with price, they're going to try to present it with, with a total bottom line that's plus deal. They're not going to give you the out the door figure. They're going to try to say plus your fees, and they'll put this stuff in the fees, or, that's the tricks. That's why I always talk about having to get the total out the door figure with everything, or the CPI, complete payment information, whichever one. But pack payments are the thing you got to watch for, and that's no question about it. This happens when you make a deal based on the monthly payment, and they're packing at $40, and you don't know it. They're not going to just add the money to the deal, but they're going to add it to those products to make them sound, easier. And that technique is used at different levels, right? Some dealers are a little harder core about it than others, but 80% of the dealerships in the United States use payment packing. No question about it. They just start high and come down fast, right? If you end up not buying anything, they just say, oh, look, we made a mistake and your payment's $30 a month less than we told you. Well, the excitement of knowing your payment's $30 a month less nullifies the aggravation you feel from the efforts they made trying to sell you stuff. It's tough to catch the payment packing. It really is. And it's hard. We've talked about it a lot of times. It's not an easy thing to get through, right? First and foremost, when you get a payment from a dealer, you always get CPI, complete payment information. Along with the monthly payment, you want to know how many months, right? What interest rate they used, how much money they were basing that payment on, and exactly if there's any down payment required to get to that much money. No matter what, every single time they quote your payment. That's one way. And if you're getting a lease quote, you got to know the mileage too, the mileage per year that's allowed. Just asking for this information will usually discourage packing, because if you check and if they can't explain the difference, it really puts them in a tough shape. But it's a good thing to have a payment calculator with you just in case they don't, you can download one for next to nothing. So it's a good idea. You can get those free a lot of places, as a matter of fact. Another thing you can do is when you go into the F&I office, the salesperson takes you in the F&I to talk to the F&I manager. You sit down and you say, hi, you get the niceties out of the way, and you say, look, before we get started with this, I'd like to know again, could you just review with me again exactly where my monthly payment is? And you'll say, well, wherever they told you, that's where it is. No, you figure it out. I want to make sure it's exactly what we dealt on. So please do that, and then we can move ahead with this. And that's going to discourage him from bumping it all. He can't come up with a mistake that's $30 if he's the F&I manager. So it kind of scares him into giving you the real skinny. And if you won't, get up and leave. Say, well, look, you're not going to do what I ask. I'm the customer. You're not going to do what I ask. I'm out of here. And they'll do it. Bingo. Oh, sorry. What? Really? Once you've done that, we can proceed. And once you start from a real number, that makes the negotiation go a lot different, right? That way you can't say it wasn't him or it was an error. Nope, no way. Another thing to do is when they're presenting the F&I menu items as a monthly payment difference, ask for the retail price of each item. Well, here, this package is $67 a month more for all of those things. Yes, but how much is each item? Well, $67 a month. No, I want to know exactly what is the price of the warranty. What is the price of the rust proofing? What is the price of whatever it is he's got in that package? You want to know that. And that's just not, you don't be aggressive, just be persistent. I want the price. If it's $1,000 warranty, right, that should be $1,000 is what? How much a month? 60 months. So it'd be $20 a month would be that 60 months on $1,000. But still, they're not gonna throw you off if you get all those answers. That's the thing. You'll be able to stay with the real facts. And if they give you the real facts, that's all you can ask for. Give us the real facts, and then you can figure it on your own. Like I mentioned earlier, I suggest shopping the products they sell online before you go to the dealership so that you know the going rate. Like rust proofing. If you're going to get rust proofing, shop around town, see what it is. If it's $500, know that. When you go to the dealer and he tells you it's $8, tell him, like, I can buy it for $5. All of a sudden, he'll be able to sell it to you for $5. That's the way it works, or maybe you're awful close to it. Same with paint sealing. If it's priced right, it's a good idea. Gap insurance, if you're not putting any money down, that's important. That's not a little thing. You should get gap insurance. We've had lots of stories on the podcast about people that owe $20,000 on a vehicle and the insurance company's only paying off $17,000 when it was stolen or wrecked. They don't have to pay what you owe. What you owe had nothing to do with it. If the book says they pay $17,000, that's all they pay. If you owe $20,000, guess who comes up with the other $3,000? You do, unless you have gap insurance. If you have a gap insurance, they pay the $3,000. That's a good investment. It probably costs $500 once. That's it. So it's probably a $10 a month item. Most loans. With leases, it's already built in because leasing companies have to protect themselves, so it's already built into the lease in all the companies I know of. Extended warranties, if they're from the manufacturer, only if they're from the manufacturer. Buying a Honda, make sure you get a Honda warranty. Buying a Ford, get a Ford warranty. If you're keeping the vehicle long enough, then it's a good investment. If you're not, then it's not. Prepaid maintenance, again, that's if you're the type of person that services your vehicle at the dealership according to the book, then you should buy prepaid maintenance, period. Because prepaid maintenance is all the service you're going to do to the vehicle in the next 4 years at a 20% discount, usually. Most dealerships, it's 20 or 25% discount for paying in advance. And you get to finance it in with the car at the lower interest rate. So it's a win-win for you. And if you're going to do it anyway, why not? I don't do my car at the dealership. I do my stuff, most of it myself, and what I don't, I shop around for the best rate. So if you're the type that just takes to the dealership and does it automatically, well then get prepaid maintenance. Otherwise, no thanks. Tire protection, if priced right, that's a good idea because if you have a blowout, it usually ruins the rim nowadays and the tire. And you're talking about with the rim and the tire and everything, you're talking about $500. Scotch guard, definitely, if priced right. If not, do it yourself. Same with paint sealing. If not, do it yourself. Safety lights, yes, but at a reasonable price. If they're going to give you lights to flash when you hit the brakes in your back window, if they're doing that for $40, $50, okay. If they're doing that for $150 or $200, no thanks. You can buy it and put it in yourself. It's really not that hard. Almost every product the F&I department sells has value to someone, and they are obligated to at least explain those products to you, but the price can vary 2 or 3 times, maybe even more than 2 or 3 times, so you got to know what you're talking about when you go in. I don't buy much in the F&I department on a 3-year lease. I bought Tire Hazard a lot of times because I was on the road a lot, but I usually don't buy anything because I do my own oil changes, or if I take it in for an oil change, that's about all I do in a 3-year lease. You can buy, I put paint sealing on it myself because it looks better at the end of the lease, and it does. I Scotch guard the seats myself, and they look better at the end of the lease because in my case, except for this last vehicle, because of that new law they changed, those crooks, I always sold my vehicle or traded it. and always made money on it. Always. Never had one where I didn't make money on it, except this last one, which I had to buy it because it's crazy. And they're still working on it. The Attorney General, I've gotten information from them to now have a different lawyer working on it. I don't know that they're doing anything, It's like, really, for what we pay out in government employee money, I can't believe that, what we go through as consumers. And it's not getting any better. But anyway, best way, is shop the stuff before you go in. You don't like the price, don't get it. Due diligence is always a better idea. Always do the due diligence. Another thing that dealerships benefit from in the F&I office is spot delivery. They're common to dealerships. They give the vehicle without pre-approval from the bank. You get it and you leave. The next day, any questions in the financing approval, and they can use it to excuse to bump the rate. Yeah, I called the bank and they didn't want to go along with the loan, so you can either they won't even say bring the car back. Say, so we have to go up to this other rate, 1.5% more, when it might have only been 1% more or 0.5% more. But 1% more, and they make that difference, that 0.5%, they make that back, which might be $1,000, another $1,200, $1,500. Remember, you don't have to agree with a bump. If they call you, that's why it's a bailment agreement. You can bring the car back and not take it, or then, of course, that can be a problem because of your trade-in. They might have already scraped any stickers that needed off from it, and it's just aggravating, and it takes time to do that, but you must either take the bump or turn in the vehicle. They'll have you sign what is called a bailment agreement if you're not approved before you leave with the vehicle. That's what it says right on a bailment agreement, and it says, I agree to bring it back if the loan doesn't go through as agreed, blah, 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 blah. That way they can legally pull the vehicle if you don't. And if you don't bring it, they can go get it legally. You're going to ask what the policy is about glitches like that, but get it in writing. And better yet, don't take the vehicle until the bank has actually approved it. That's what I do. I don't want to have any argument with them. Let's wait for the bank to approve it. If they're approved, they don't need a bailment agreement. If there's a bailment agreement, it's not approved. If they told you it's approved, then they don't need a bailment agreement. Right? And if you go at the times when I say to go buy a vehicle, it's fine because your banks are open. There's no reason not to wait for them to approve it. One other item I could bring up, used a lot in extended terms, is 60 or 90 days to the first payment. I just saw that recently in the paper here in Orlando. Now payments for 90 days. They're not doing anything for you. You buy a vehicle and your first payment doesn't start for 3 months. That'll make you think that's like they're paying for it. No, they're not. They're just tacking it in the interest. If you went and got it and you said, okay, well, how much is the payment if I go back to first payment in 30 days? It'll be $2 a month less or $3 a month less, which doesn't sound like much. It's $100, $150 of your money. And it gets tacked in your finance charges, how it got there to begin with. And you think 3 months free. It's not free. No, actually, if you switch the 90-day back to 30 days, you're also going to be out of the vehicle sooner. You got to remember that if you go to 90-day to first payment and you got a 66-month loan, you're talking it's actually going to be 69 months then. Right. If you switch it back, you'll be out in 66 months. That's long enough. That's how people get upside down. So for the first 3 months, you're not paying anything to keep the value equal to what you owe. You're going backwards for 3 months. Not good. $2 isn't much. It costs you $2 a month to do that. That isn't much. $2 a month. It's $120, $130 over the year, 2.5, maybe $180 over that period. But it's not the point. It's your money. And it wasn't free like you were led to believe. And it's not a good thing for you as a consumer because it just puts you a little more upside down. You don't want to do that. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't do that, me. That's one of the main causes for minus equity is a slower rate to payoff ratio. And this just makes it worse. Take into account today's crazy market in the future, upside down could have a new meaning. Could be, based on all the things going on today, it could be because of the market is higher than it should be. And when it goes back down and the fact of all the things they've added to it and the tax and the dealer fees and all that stuff and the interest, you could be upside down $10,000. Yeah, that's what I said. $10,000. Yeah, going to happen. That would be the extreme, but $5,000 or $6,000 would be easy. I mean, dealership business managers can be helpful and productive, and some are really good guys, but you don't know which ones they are and who's good and who's bad. No, you have no way of knowing. Always shop the rate. Always get all the information when being quoted a payment, all of it. And when you first sit down with the F&I manager, have them repeat the payment you signed the deal at. Well, he says right here in such and such a payment. Yeah, but what do you figure it is? Is they figure it right? You figure it out. Well, it says right here. No, I want you to figure it out. If he just says it's right here, later on he can say, well, yeah, it wasn't right there. In the meantime, he's tried to sell you, a huge amount of stuff. But read about the different products they sell before you make the deal. Plus, know the current market value on those products. Know what rust proofing sells for. Know what paint sealant sells for. A lot of that stuff rust proof you can get, but paint sealant and Scotch Guard in the seats and stuff, which will help the resale value and help you retain higher resale value at the end and make you some money, those things are not very expensive to do yourself. Pretty inexpensive. That's all part of that F&I picture. And now that's the stuff you can do to protect yourself while finishing up a deal. It's a huge part of the deal, the F&I department. Huge. Well, that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have any questions or requests or even a comment, please call or email me. Callers, it's 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. Or email me at dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com or dealtalk@mail.com. Either one of those two email addresses. That's dealtalkpodcast@gmail or dealtalk@mail. Please don't forget to do yourself a favor and get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. Believe me, I'm not making hardly any money off this thing at all. I think I get 50 cents if you buy one. And by the time I pay them and everything, I mean, it's what it is. It's not much. I'm not doing it for the money. It's worth it. It's worth it to have that with you, to keep reading that while you're going. It will motivate you. It'll help you keep your head straight while you're making a car deal because it's stressful. Buying cars is stressful. Trucks, motorcycles, I don't care what they are. It's stressful. Motorhomes, I don't care what you're buying. Anything expensive is stressful. Like I mentioned before, tell your friends and relatives. They'll save big. You'll be a hero. They seldom ever call me and thank me. If someone's told them, they always call their neighbor and tell them, or their person to let them know, family member, and tell them, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hey, Bob, I really appreciate what you gave to me. And then they might let me know later, but generally speaking, they thank the person that told them about it. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. You want to know the amount that they figured the payment on, the months, the interest rate, any required down payment to get to that amount financed. Every single time they quote you a payment, every time you want that information. And if you're doing your own financing, every price you get should be all in. Every single cost required to buy the vehicle. Tax tag, dealer fees, any options they plan on adding on, every single cost should be included in that price. That's called OTD, out the door.